Now let's begin. The smell of burnt coffee filled the small break room at Randolph Manufacturing, a mid-sized industrial parts company that had been the backbone of Millbrook, Pennsylvania for 3 generations. Derek McKenzie sat alone at a chipped formica table, his calloused hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup as he listened to his brother-in-law Rex Randolph hold court near the vending machines. "That's what I'm saying," Rex announced to his cousin Marshall and 2 warehouse workers. Victoria must have been desperate when she married him. A handyman? Guy can barely afford to fix his own truck. Marshall snorted. At least he keeps his head down. Not like he could get a real job anywhere else. Derek took another sip, his face neutral. At 42, he'd learned to let the comments slide off him like rain off a tarp. His weathered face and work-worn clothes told a carefully constructed story, one he'd been telling for 15 years. The truth was considerably different. He'd founded Randolph Manufacturing 20 years ago under a shell corporation, building it from a garage operation into a thriving business with 200 employees. When he met Victoria Randolph at a supplier's conference, he'd been immediately drawn to her intelligence and warmth. But he'd also seen the warning signs, the way her family spoke about money, about status, about people they considered beneath them. So Derek had made a choice. He'd hidden his ownership behind layers of corporate structure, taken a modest handyman salary from the company books, and lived simply. He wanted to see if Victoria loved him, really loved him, or if she loved what he could provide. Turns out, she'd loved him. Her family, however, had treated him like a particularly unfortunate charity case for the past 14 years. Dad, 10-year-old Katie McKenzie appeared in the doorway, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Her dark curls, so like her mother's, framed an excited face. "Mom said I could come see your workshop." Derek's expression transformed, genuine warmth flooding his features. "Hey, sweetheart. Finish your homework already?" "Yep. Can you show me how to fix the music box again?" "Katie." Victoria appeared behind their daughter, beautiful but tired in her administrative assistant outfit. She worked in the company's front office, a position her father Theodore had insisted on when Derek and Victoria got married. "Don't bother your father at work." "She's never a bother," Derek said, standing. He was 6'2", built like someone who'd spent years doing actual manual labor, which he had. First to build his company, then to maintain his cover. "Come on, Bug. Let's go look at that music box." As they left, Derek heard Rex mutter something about, "At least he's a decent father," and Marshall's reply, "Low bar to clear." The workshop was Derek's sanctuary, a corner of the warehouse where he kept tools and handled repairs. It was also where he kept a locked cabinet containing a laptop that none of the Randolph family knew existed. On that laptop were the real books, the real ownership documents, the real power. Katie chattered about her day, while Derek showed her the tiny mechanisms of her grandmother's broken music box. Not Marion Randolph. Derek's mother had died when he was 17. This had been hers, one of the few things he'd kept. "Grandpa Theodore says you don't make enough money to buy me good Christmas presents," Katie said suddenly, her small fingers stilling on the music box gears. Derek's jaw tightened. "Did he now? I told him I don't care about expensive stuff. I like what you make me." She looked up at him with those serious brown eyes. "But he said I should want better. That mom deserves better too. Your mom chose me, Katie. And I chose her. That's what matters." Derek kept his voice gentle, but inside, something cold and hard was calcifying. Theodore Randolph had always been the worst of them. Imperious, cruel in subtle ways, convinced his old Pennsylvania money made him superior to working people. That evening, Derek drove his deliberately beat-up Ford F-150 to the modest 3-bedroom house they rented, from a property company Derek secretly owned. Victoria was quieter than usual as she prepared dinner. "Dad cornered me again today," she finally said, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. "He wants us to move in with them. Says we can't afford Katie's school expenses, that you're not providing properly." Derek moved behind her, gently taking the knife. "Vic, look at me." She turned, and he saw the frustration in her eyes. "I know we're doing fine, Derek. I know you work hard. But he won't let it go. None of them will. And now they're saying things to Katie." "What things?" "That she should be embarrassed. That her father is a charity case." Victoria's voice cracked. "Rex told her at last week's family dinner that she'd never go to a good college because we can't afford it." Derek had endured 14 years of disrespect. He'd let them mock his truck, his clothes, his job. He'd smiled through Theodore's lectures about responsibility and Marshall's jokes about Victoria's fixer-upper husband. He'd done it because Victoria had asked him to keep the peace, because maintaining his cover had required it. But going after Katie crossed a line. Maybe it's time we spent less time with your family, Derek suggested carefully. Victoria shook her head. Christmas is in 2 weeks. You know how Mom gets if we miss Christmas. And Katie loves seeing her cousins. Derek knew the Christmas gathering well. Every year, Theodore and Marion hosted at their sprawling estate in Millbrook Heights, the wealthy enclave overlooking the town. Every year, the extended Randolph clan descended. Theodore's brother Walter and his family, Marion's sister Karen Barnes and her brood, all the cousins and their spouses who worked various positions at the manufacturing plant. 47 Randolphs and their spouses were on Derek's payroll, though none of them knew it. Theodore had negotiated their positions over the years, treating the company like a family employment agency. Derek had allowed it, curious to see how deep the entitlement went. Pretty deep, as it turned out. The next morning, Derek arrived at work an hour early. He unlocked his workshop cabinet and booted up his laptop, reviewing organizational charts. Theodore Randolph, plant manager, $120,000 salary. Marion Randolph, human resources director, $95,000. Rex Randolph, sales director, $105,000. Marshall Randolph, logistics manager, $98,000. Down the line it went. Victoria's sister Karen ran quality control. Cousin Walter Jr. managed IT. The list stretched on: supervisors, team leads, administrative staff. All Randolphs. All convinced they'd earned their positions through merit and family legacy. None of them knew the company's original name had been McKinsey Industrial Solutions. Derek had changed it after meeting Victoria, a calculated decision to build trust with Theodore Randolph, who'd been looking for investors in a failing manufacturing business. Derek had bought the operation, rebranded it, and given Theodore the plant manager position. Theodore thought he'd negotiated a good deal for his family. He had no idea he was working for his future son-in-law. Derek spent 2 hours reviewing personnel files, performance metrics, and company financials. His executive assistant, a sharp woman named Grace Bradshaw who worked remotely from Philadelphia and was one of the few people who knew Derek's real position, had flagged several issues. Marshall's logistics decisions had cost the company $200,000 in the last quarter through poor vendor negotiations. Rex's sales numbers were inflated with phantom contracts. Karen had ignored 3 sexual harassment complaints in quality control. Theodore himself had been blocking Derek's proposed safety improvements, claiming they were too expensive. Derek compiled it all into a folder labeled Cause. His phone buzzed. Victoria, Dad wants us to come to dinner tonight. Said it's important. Derek knew what this was. Theodore's annual pre-Christmas lecture about Derek needing to work harder, do better, provide more. The old man did it every year, usually with the whole family watching. I'll be there, Derek texted back. The Randolph estate was everything Derek's house wasn't: sprawling, ostentatious, filled with expensive furniture that no one was allowed to touch. Theodore held court in his study, a room designed to intimidate with its dark wood paneling and wall of business awards. Awards for running a company he didn't own. Derek, sit. Theodore didn't look up from his desk. At 68, he still cut an imposing figure, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that came from decades of unchecked authority. Derek sat. Victoria stood beside him, tense. I've been reviewing family finances, Theodore began, shuffling papers. Victoria, you're making $42,000 as an administrative assistant. Respectable. Derek, you're pulling in what? $38,000 as a handyman. About that, Derek said mildly. Pathetic. Theodore finally looked up, his pale blue eyes cold. My daughter has been carrying this family financially for 14 years. My granddaughter is growing up in a rental home. And you're content to drift along, fixing toilets and changing light bulbs. Dad, Victoria started. I'm not finished. Theodore stood, moving to the window overlooking his manicured grounds. I'm giving you an opportunity, Derek. I need someone to manage the night janitorial crew at the plant. It's $45,000, plus you'd qualify for family health insurance instead of that bargain plan you're on. The janitorial crew. Derek knew the position. He'd eliminated it 6 months ago in favor of a cleaning service contract that saved the company money and treated workers better. But Theodore, who'd never actually reviewed the real books, didn't know that. That position doesn't exist anymore, Derek said quietly. Theodore's neck reddened. Excuse me. The janitorial manager position was eliminated in July. The company switched to contracted services. I run that plant. I think I'd know. You manage day-to-day operations, Derek interrupted, his voice still calm. You don't control structural decisions. The room went very quiet. Victoria's hand found Derek's shoulder, squeezing in warning. But Derek was tired of the charade, tired of Theodore's bullying, tired of watching his daughter absorb their contempt. Theodore's face went from red to purple. You disrespectful. How dare you question me in my own home? I've given you a job, given you. You've given me nothing, Derek said, standing. He was 4 inches taller than Theodore and 40 pounds heavier. I work for my pay. Always have. Get out. Theodore's voice was low, dangerous. Get out of my house. Derek, please, Victoria whispered. But Marion appeared in the doorway, her face pinched with disapproval. Theodore, the family's gathering in the dining room. We have the Christmas planning to discuss. Derek was just leaving, Theodore said coldly. Derek looked at Victoria. She was caught between them, torn as she'd been for 14 years. He saw the plea in her eyes. Don't make this worse. Don't make me choose. He kissed her forehead. I'll see you at home. As he walked through the Randolph estate, he passed the assembled family in the dining room. Rex smirked at him. Marshall whispered something to cousin Walter Jr. Karen Barnes didn't even look up from her phone. In the driveway, Derek sat in his truck for a long moment. Through the lit windows, he could see them all gathering around the dinner table. The Randolph family, secure in their positions, their money, their certainty that they deserved everything they had. He pulled out his phone and called Grace Bradshaw. I need you to prepare termination packages, he said when she answered. 47 of them. Include full cause documentation for the senior managers. Standard severance only where legally required. Have them ready to mail by December 27th. Grace was quiet for a beat. You're sure? They just threw me out. Again. And they've been poisoning my daughter against me. Derek's voice was hard. I'm done protecting them from themselves. I'll have everything ready, Grace said. Derek? For what it's worth, this is long overdue. Derek drove home to his modest rental, walking past the second-hand furniture and budget decorations that were all part of his careful disguise. In his bedroom closet, behind the work boots and tool belts, was a safe. Inside that safe were documents that would end the Randolph family's comfortable existence. Corporate filings, ownership papers, bank statements showing the shell corporations and holding companies that made Derek McKenzie the sole owner of Randolph Manufacturing. Also in that safe was a folder labeled After. Inside were college fund statements for Katie, $500,000 and growing. Property deeds for the house they rented and 4 others in Millbrook. Investment portfolios. A trust that would keep Victoria comfortable for the rest of her life. Derek had spent 14 years being called a loser, a charity case, a weight around his wife's neck. He'd endured it because Victoria had asked him to, because he'd wanted to give her family a chance to see past their own arrogance. They'd failed that test. But more importantly, they'd started hurting Katie. That changed everything. He pulled out his phone and began making notes. The termination letters were step 1. But Derek was going to make sure the Randolph family understood exactly what they'd lost, and exactly who they'd been mocking all these years. Revenge wasn't just about destroying them. It was about showing them the truth. And the truth was going to hurt far more than any pink slip. Christmas Eve arrived with snow falling over Millbrook, transforming the industrial town into something from a postcard. Derek spent the morning at his workshop, ostensibly repairing a broken forklift, but actually finalizing his plans with Grace via encrypted messages on his laptop. Termination packages are ready, she confirmed. Legal has reviewed everything. The cause-based terminations are airtight. We have documentation going back years. The others will receive standard severance per their contracts. And the timing? Letters will be delivered December 27th via certified mail and email. All access badges will be deactivated at 5 p.m. on the 26th. Derek nodded, though she couldn't see him. What about the plant itself? We've identified external candidates for the key management positions. They can start in January. The transition team is ready. Honestly, Derek, the company will run better without the dead weight. That was the bitter truth. Derek had tried for years to improve safety standards, update equipment, invest in employee training. Theodore had blocked it all, convinced the old ways were sufficient. Rex had been padding his sales numbers for so long that actual customer satisfaction was in the toilet. Marshall's logistics failures had cost them 3 major contracts. The Randolph family had been slowly killing a company they didn't even know they didn't own. Good work, Grace. Take the week off after this goes down. You've earned it. Wouldn't miss it for the world, she said. Oh, and Derek? Merry Christmas. He smiled despite himself. Merry Christmas, Grace. That evening, Victoria came home from last-minute shopping looking stressed. Katie was with Marion for the afternoon, helping bake cookies for tomorrow's gathering, a tradition that Derek knew was really just Marion showing off her kitchen and instructing Katie on proper homemaking. Dad called, Victoria said, setting down shopping bags. He wants to apologize. Derek looked up from where he was wrapping Katie's presents, a beautiful dollhouse he'd built himself in his workshop, complete with handcrafted furniture. Does he? He said he was harsh the other night. That he knows you're doing your best. Victoria's voice was carefully neutral. He wants us to come tomorrow. Wants to make it a good Christmas for Katie. Derek continued wrapping, his movements precise. What do you want, Vic? She sat down across from him, and he saw how tired she looked. Tired of being caught in the middle. Tired of defending him to her family. Tired of the whole situation. I want my family to respect my husband. I want Katie to grow up knowing both sides of her family. She trailed off. I want things to be easier. They can be, Derek said quietly. After tomorrow. Something in his tone made her look at him sharply. Derek, what does that mean? It means I'm done being their punching bag. He met her eyes. I'm done letting them make Katie feel ashamed of me. I'm done pretending their cruelty is acceptable because they're family. What are you going to do? Nothing tomorrow. Tomorrow is Christmas. We'll go. We'll celebrate. And I'll smile through whatever they dish out. Derek's voice was steady, calm. But after tomorrow, things are going to change. Victoria studied his face, really studied it. And Derek saw the moment she recognized something new there. Something that had been building for 14 years. You're scaring me a little. Don't be scared. I'm not going to hurt anyone. He reached across and took her hand. I'm just going to stop protecting them. From what? From themselves. She wanted to ask more. He could see the questions in her eyes. But Katie burst through the door at that moment, covered in flour and chocolate, chattering about the cookies and how Grandma Marion said she was becoming a proper young lady. Derek scooped his daughter up, flour and all, making her shriek with laughter. You know what proper young ladies do? What? They help their dads finish wrapping presents. As Katie dove into the wrapping paper with enthusiasm, if not skill, Derek caught Victoria watching them. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She knew something was coming, even if she didn't know what. Christmas Day dawned bright and cold. The Randolph estate was transformed into a winter wonderland, with professional decorations covering every surface and a massive tree dominating the foyer. Cars filled the circular driveway. Expensive SUVs and luxury sedans that Derek knew were mostly leased or financed up to their limits. The Randolphs loved looking wealthy more than they loved being financially stable. Katie ran ahead to join her cousins, Marshall's 3 kids and Karen's 2. Derek and Victoria followed more slowly, Derek carrying the presents he'd made, a wooden jewelry box for Marion, a hand-tooled leather notebook for Theodore, carefully crafted items for each family member. Derek, Victoria. Theodore stood in the doorway, playing the gracious host. He'd dressed for the occasion in a burgundy smoking jacket that made him look like a discount Rockefeller. Come in, come in. Katie's already terrorizing the other children. Thanks, Dad. Victoria kissed his cheek. Derek noted that Theodore didn't extend his hand for a shake. Inside, the family had assembled in its usual hierarchy. Theodore and Marion held court in the living room. Rex and his wife Whitney dominated the conversation about their upcoming cruise. Paid for, Derek knew, with a bonus Rex had awarded himself without authorization. Marshall and his wife Debbie discussed their eldest son's private school applications. Karen Barnes complained about the incompetent workers in her quality control department. Derek settled into a corner chair, accepted a weak gin and tonic from cousin Walter Jr., and watched. This was familiar territory, being present but invisible, acknowledged but not included. He'd perfected the art of being furniture. Uncle Derek, Katie appeared with her cousin Toby, Marshall's youngest. Can you fix my robot? The arm came off. Derek examined the expensive toy, something Marshall had no doubt bought to show up Derek's handmade gifts. Easy fix. You got a small screwdriver, buddy. Toby ran off to find one, and Katie stayed close to Derek. Grandpa Theodore says you're going to get a promotion, she whispered. Is that true? Derek's eyes found Theodore across the room, holding court about the company's record profits under his leadership. Did he now? He told me at cookie time. Said maybe we could afford a better house. Katie looked down. I like our house. Me too, Bug. Rex appeared, drink in hand, settling onto the arm of Derek's chair uninvited. Hey, brother-in-law. Heard you and Dad had words the other night. We talked. Dad's a hard man, but he's fair. Rex took a long drink. He sees potential in you, Derek. That janitorial position, that's a real opportunity. Management track. Derek sipped his gin. Position doesn't exist. Rex's smile faltered. What? The janitorial manager position was eliminated 6 months ago. Company went to a contract service model. Rex looked genuinely confused. Dad wouldn't make that call without telling me. I'm on the executive team. You're the sales director, Derek corrected mildly. Facilities decisions wouldn't cross your desk. Rex's face reddened. He stood abruptly, drink sloshing. You know what your problem is, Derek? You think you're smarter than everyone else. But you're a handyman. You fix toilets. My family gave you a job out of charity, and you can't even be grateful. The conversation in the room died. Everyone was watching now. Derek stayed seated, calm. I'm grateful for lots of things, Rex. My wife. My daughter. My health. He paused. Your family didn't give me anything I didn't earn. You arrogant. Rex. Theodore's voice cut through the room like a blade. That's enough. It's Christmas. But Rex was drunk and angry, and Derek recognized the dangerous combination. No, Dad. Someone needs to say it. Derek's been coasting for 14 years. Living off Victoria's income, taking advantage of our generosity. He's a parasite. Victoria stood, her face white. Rex, stop. Why? Because it's not true. Rex turned on his sister. Wake up, Vic. You could have done so much better. Instead, you married a broke handyman who can't even. Derek stood. He didn't raise his voice, didn't make any threatening moves. He simply stood, all 6'2", 215 pounds of him, and looked at Rex. Rex stepped back. I think, Derek said quietly, that we should leave. Katie, get your coat. No. Marion appeared, her voice sharp. Victoria, you are not leaving on Christmas. We are a family. Then start acting like one, Derek said. Theodore moved between them, his face thunderous. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done, Theodore? Derek's calm finally cracked, just a little. Given me a job? I work for every penny. Welcomed me into the family. You've spent 14 years treating me like a servant. Accepted my daughter? You make her feel ashamed of her father. Because you should be ashamed. Theodore Ward. You're 42 years old, making $38,000 a year. You live in a rental. You drive a truck held together with rust. My daughter deserves better, my granddaughter deserves better, and I'm tired of pretending you're good enough for them. The room was silent. Katie stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Victoria's hands were shaking. Derek looked around at the assembled Randolphs, 47 adults, all watching, all silently agreeing with Theodore. Not one of them spoke up. Not one of them defended him. Come on, Katie, he said gently. Let's go home. If you leave, Marion said coldly, you're not welcome back. We are done making excuses for you, Derek McKenzie. We are done enabling your mediocrity. If you walk out that door, you walk out of this family. Derek looked at Victoria. This was the choice he'd always known would come, him or them. He saw the agony in her face, the impossible position he'd put her in by keeping his secrets for so long. I'll drive her home, Victoria whispered. I need to think. Derek's heart cracked a little, but he understood. Okay. He walked to Katie, who threw herself into his arms. I don't care what they say, Daddy. I love you. I love you too, Bug. So much. He carried her toward the door. Katie stays here. Theodore's voice was flat, final. You've poisoned this family enough. My granddaughter deserves to grow up with proper values, proper expectations. She's not going to live in poverty because of your failures. Derek stopped, Katie still in his arms. He turned very slowly. What did you say? You heard me. Theodore stepped forward. Katie stays. We'll enroll her in boarding school after the holidays. Somewhere she can develop properly, without your influence. Something cold and terrible unfurled in Derek's chest. You think you can take my daughter? I think we can give her a better life than you ever could. Derek set Katie down gently, then moved directly into Theodore's space. The old man was tall, but Derek was taller, broader, and 26 years younger. Listen to me very carefully, Derek said, his voice soft and absolutely lethal. You will never, ever threaten to take my daughter again. Do you understand me? Theodore tried to hold his ground, but Derek saw the fear flicker in his eyes. Get out of my house. Gladly, Derek took Katie's hand. Victoria, we're leaving. Now. But Victoria was crying, surrounded by her mother and sister, and Derek realized with a sick feeling that she wasn't coming. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I need time, she whispered. Derek, I'm sorry, I need time. Derek looked at his wife, the woman he'd loved for 15 years, the woman he'd built a secret empire for, and nodded. Okay, take the time you need. He walked out of the Randolph estate with his daughter, leaving behind 47 people who thought they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. The day after Christmas, Derek woke early in the house that suddenly felt too quiet without Victoria. She'd texted late last night saying she was staying at her parents' estate, that she needed to think. Katie was still asleep, exhausted from crying herself to sleep. Derek made coffee and opened his laptop. An email from Grace was waiting. Packages mailed. Delivery confirmed for today by 2 p.m. Good luck. He spent the morning with Katie, making pancakes and watching her favorite movies. She didn't ask where her mother was. At 10 years old, she was learning that sometimes the adults in her life disappointed her. Dad? She asked during the second movie. Are you and Mom going to get divorced? Derek pulled her close. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope not. But whatever happens, you need to know that your mom and I both love you more than anything. Grandpa Theodore said you're not good enough for us. I know he did. He's wrong. Katie looked up at Derek with those serious brown eyes. You're the best dad in the world. Derek's throat tightened. Thank you, Bug. That means everything to me. At 1:47 p.m., his phone started buzzing. Then it didn't stop. The first call was from Rex. Derek let it go to voicemail. The second was from Marshall. Voicemail. The third was from Theodore. Voicemail. By 2:15, he had 23 missed calls and counting. The messages were all variations of the same theme: confusion, anger, demands that he call back immediately. At 2:30, Victoria called. Derek answered. Hey. Derek. Her voice was shaking. What did you do? What do you mean? My father just got a termination letter. So did Rex. And Marshall. And my mother. Derek, what the hell is going on? I should probably explain in person, Derek said calmly. Are you still at your parents'? The entire family is here. Everyone got letters. Derek, they're saying. She lowered her voice. They're saying they're all being fired from Randolph Manufacturing. All 47 of them. 47 exactly, Derek confirmed. Can I come over? You. Victoria made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Yes. You need to come over right now. Derek got Katie settled with a neighbor, a kind widow named Mrs. Peterson who Katie adored, and drove to the Randolph estate. The circular driveway was packed with cars. Through the windows, he could see people gathered in the living room, waving papers, shouting. Theodore answered the door, his face purple with rage. You smug son of a, what did you do? I'd like to come in, Derek said politely. You'll explain right here what kind of sick prank this is. It's not a prank, Theodore. Derek pulled out his phone, opened a PDF, and showed it to the old man. It's business. Theodore stared at the screen, at the corporate filing documents showing McKinsey Holdings LLC as the sole owner of Randolph Manufacturing, with Derek McKinsey listed as CEO and chairman. This is fake. Forged. You can't. It's real. I bought the company 20 years ago when it was failing. I rebranded it, built it up, and I've been the owner ever since. Derek's voice was steady, factual. Every paycheck you've received for the past 14 years came from me. Theodore's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Derek stepped past him into the house. The living room fell silent as he entered. 47 faces turned toward him, some angry, some confused, some beginning to show the first hints of understanding. Victoria stood near the fireplace, a termination letter clutched in her hand. Derek met her eyes and saw the betrayal there, the confusion. "You've all received letters today," Derek began, his voice carrying across the room. "Termination notices, effective January 1st. I want to explain why." "You don't have the authority," Rex started. "I have all the authority." Derek pulled out his phone again, connected it to Theodore's TV via Bluetooth, and pulled up the corporate documents. "McKinsey Holdings owns Randolph Manufacturing. I am McKinsey Holdings. Every single one of you works for me, has worked for me for years." The documents displayed on the 70-inch screen: articles of incorporation, stock certificates, tax filings, bank statements. Irrefutable proof. Marion sank into a chair. "This isn't possible." "It's absolutely possible. And here's why you're all being terminated." Derek changed the display to a spreadsheet. "Theodore, you've blocked $3.2 million in safety improvements over the past 5 years. We've had 4 OSHA violations as a result. Rex, your phantom sales contracts have cost us actual customer relationships. Marshall, your logistics failures have hemorrhaged money. Karen, you've ignored documented harassment in your department." He scrolled through the data, watching faces pale as the evidence mounted. "Mom," Victoria's voice was small. "Is this real?" Marion couldn't meet her daughter's eyes. Derek continued, relentless now. "The senior managers are being terminated with cause. No severance beyond what's legally mandated. Everyone else is getting standard separation packages. The plant will continue operating with new management. The 153 employees who aren't Randolph's will keep their jobs and get the safety improvements and training they deserve." "You bastard," Theodore whispered. "You lied to us. To Victoria. You let us think." "I let you show me who you really are," Derek interrupted. "I gave you 14 years to treat me with basic human decency, to treat your daughter's husband with respect, to treat your granddaughter's father with kindness." His voice hardened. "You failed. Over and over. You failed." "Derek." Victoria moved toward him, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. "You lied to me too. For 15 years you lied." "I did," he acknowledged. "I wanted to know if you loved me for me. Turns out, you did. But I also wanted to see if your family could ever accept someone they thought was beneath them." He looked around the room. "They couldn't. So this is revenge." Rex's voice was ugly. "You're destroying 47 people's lives because we hurt your feelings?" "I'm removing 47 people who've been damaging a company while collecting paychecks they didn't earn," Derek corrected. "And I'm protecting my daughter from people who tried to turn her against her father, who threatened to take her from me." Theodore lunged at him. At 68, the old man was no match for Derek, who simply caught his arms and held him until Theodore stopped struggling. "You're done," Derek said quietly. "All of you. Your jobs, your authority, your ability to hurt anyone else who doesn't meet your standards. Done." "What about me?" Victoria's voice cut through the chaos. "Did you fire me too?" Derek looked at his wife and felt his heart break a little more. "No. You actually earned your position. You're good at your job. You never treated anyone poorly. This isn't about you, Vic. It's absolutely about me. You used me. You used my family name. I built that company from nothing. The Randolph name was failing when I bought it. I gave it value. I gave them all jobs they didn't deserve and kept them employed for years while they mocked me, belittled me, and tried to poison my daughter against me." Derek's calm was finally cracking. "I protected them. I gave them every chance. And yesterday, they told me I wasn't good enough for my own daughter." The room was silent. "You all thought I was a loser," Derek continued, his voice rough. "A broke handyman who got lucky with Victoria. You made jokes. You offered me charity. You tried to separate me from my daughter. So yes, Victoria, this is revenge. But it's also justice." He turned to face them all one last time. "You have until January 1st to clear out your offices. Security badges will be deactivated then. Any company property needs to be returned. If you have questions about your severance or health insurance, contact HR, the real HR department in Philadelphia, not Marion's office." Derek walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and Theodore? That estate you're so proud of? The one with the mortgage you bragged about paying off? I hold that note through one of my investment companies. You've got 90 days to refinance, or I'll foreclose." Theodore's face went white. "You wouldn't. Watch me." Derek walked out into the cold December afternoon. Behind him, the Randolph family erupted into shouting, crying, chaos. He'd just destroyed their world with a few phone calls and some certified letters. He should have felt satisfied. vindicated. Instead, he felt hollow. Because Victoria hadn't followed him out. And he didn't know if she ever would. The next 3 days were a blur of phone calls, legal threats, and silence from Victoria. Derek focused on Katie, keeping her busy and shielded from the fallout. The neighbor network in their modest part of Millbrook rallied around them. Mrs. Peterson, the Johnsons down the street, the Torres family who lived above them. Working class people who'd always treated Derek with respect. On the 4th day, Victoria came home. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her clothes rumpled. Derek was making lunch when she walked in. Katie ran to her, and Victoria held their daughter tight for a long moment. "Can we talk?" Victoria asked quietly. Derek nodded. "Katie, why don't you go to your room for a bit?" Katie looked between her parents, worry clear on her young face, but she went. Victoria sat at their kitchen table, the same scratched, second-hand table Derek had been sitting at for years. "My father tried to kill himself." Derek's stomach dropped. "What? Pills? Mom found him yesterday. He's in the hospital, stable now, but—" She looked up at Derek with red-rimmed eyes. "He left a note. Said he'd destroyed everything, that he'd failed the family." "Vic, I didn't. I never wanted." "I know." She held up a hand. "I've spent the past 4 days listening to my family. Really listening. Do you know what I heard?" Derek waited. Entitlement. Blame. Self-pity. Victoria's voice was hollow. "Not once did anyone take responsibility. Not my father for blocking safety measures. Not Rex for his fake sales. Not Marshall for incompetence. They all blamed you." "I shouldn't have hidden who I was," Derek said. "That was wrong." "Yes, it was." Victoria met his eyes. "But I understand why you did it." "And Derek?" "After 4 days with them, after seeing how they reacted when they lost everything, I'm ashamed. You didn't do anything. I enabled them. For 14 years, I asked you to just tolerate it. To keep the peace. To let them treat you like garbage because they were my family." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "They tried to take Katie from us. And I almost, God, Derek, I almost let them." Derek moved to her, kneeling beside her chair. "You didn't. You wouldn't have. I don't know that. I was so torn, so confused. And then you walked in with proof that you'd been supporting them all along. That you were the reason they had anything. And they still—" She broke down, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." He held her while she cried, all the pain and tension of 15 years flowing out. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "That's up to you," Derek said gently. "I meant what I said. You didn't do anything wrong. You keep your job if you want it. The house we're renting? I own it. You can stay. Katie can stay. I'll make sure you're both taken care of, whether you want me or not." Victoria pulled back, searching his face. "Do you want me?" "Every day of my life," Derek said without hesitation. "But I won't force you to choose between me and your family. Not anymore. They already made that choice for me." Victoria wiped her eyes. "Mom called me a traitor for defending you. Rex said I was thinking with my hormones instead of my brain. Karen suggested I have you committed for mental instability." Derek felt a fresh wave of anger, but Victoria continued. "My father tried to kill himself, and you know what his note said? That I betrayed the family by marrying you. That I'd ruined everything." She stood up, pacing. "Not that he'd failed. Not that he'd been cruel and arrogant. That I had ruined things by loving you. Vic, I choose you," she said firmly. "I choose us. I choose the man who spent 14 years protecting me even when it cost him everything. The man who built me a secret empire so I'd never have to worry about money. The man who makes our daughter wooden dollhouses because he knows she'll treasure them more than anything store-bought." Derek stood, hardly daring to hope. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." She moved into his arms. "But Derek, no more secrets. Ever. If we're going to make this work, we have to be partners. Real partners. No more secrets," he promised. They stood there in their modest kitchen, holding each other, while their world realigned around them. Later that night, Derek lay in bed next to Victoria, both of them unable to sleep. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "About my father," she admitted. "I should hate him for what he did, what he said. But mostly I just feel sad. He built his whole identity around that company, that position, and it was never really his. I didn't want to break him. I know. But Derek? He broke himself. He had every opportunity to be a decent person, a decent grandfather. He chose superiority instead." She rolled to face him in the darkness. "What are you going to do about the estate?" Derek had been thinking about that. I'm going to restructure the loan. Lower interest, longer terms. They can keep the house if they can make reasonable payments. Even after everything, they're still Katie's grandparents. And your parents. I don't want to be the man who made them homeless. Derek paused. But I am going to make one condition. What's that? They apologize. To you. To Katie. And they mean it. Real accountability, not just words to get what they want. Victoria was quiet for a moment. They won't do it. Then they lose the house. You've gotten harder, she observed. In these past few days, I've seen a side of you I never knew existed. I've been hiding it for 15 years. The guy who built a company from nothing, who made hard decisions, who didn't tolerate disrespect. I buried him when I met you. Derek turned to her. I'm tired of being buried. Good, Victoria said firmly. Because I fell in love with a handyman, but I'm realizing I married a CEO. And I think I might love the CEO even more. They made love that night with a new understanding between them. No more roles, no more hiding. Just two people who'd survived a crucible and come out stronger. The new year arrived with changes rippling through Millbrook. Randolph Manufacturing announced a new management structure under CEO Derek McKenzie, and the town was shocked. The local paper ran a story about this secret owner who'd been working among the regular employees for years. Most of the fired Randolph scattered. Rex and Whitney moved to Florida, bitter and broke. Marshall found work at a competitor, though at a much lower salary. Karen Barnes moved in with her sister, unemployed and unemployable after word spread about the ignored harassment complaints. Theodore and Marion stayed in Millbrook, living in their estate on Derek's restructured loan. Theodore never apologized, his pride wouldn't allow it, but he'd emerged from the hospital a diminished man. Marion called Victoria once a week, stiff conversations that focused on Katie and avoided any real topics. The plant thrived under new management. Derek implemented the safety improvements, upgraded equipment, and instituted profit sharing for employees. Productivity increased 40% in the first quarter. One Saturday in March, Derek was in his workshop, now a proper office in the manufacturing plant, when his assistant Grace knocked on the door. You have visitors, she said. They're insisting they need to see you. Derek looked up to see Walter Dyer and his wife Lee. Walter was Theodore's younger brother, one of the 47 who'd been terminated. But unlike the others, Walter had never been cruel to Derek. He'd been quiet, almost invisible in the Randolph family dynamics. Walter, Lee, come in. They entered awkwardly. Walter held his old uniform cap in his hands, twisting it nervously. Mr. McKenzie. Derek. We wanted to come say something. Derek gestured to chairs. Please. Walter sat, then stood, then sat again. I was a maintenance supervisor. Worked here for 12 years. And I just want you to know that I get it. Why you did what you did. Derek raised an eyebrow. You do? My brother Theodore was a bully. Always has been. Our whole lives. He's looked down on people, made them feel small. Walter met Derek's eyes. I watched him do it to you for years. And I'm ashamed I never said anything. Lee spoke up, her voice soft. We're not here asking for our jobs back. We know that's not going to happen. But we wanted you to know that not everyone in that family is like Theodore. And we're sorry. Truly sorry. Derek studied them. What are you doing now? Maintenance work at the hospital, Walter said. It's good, honest work. Pays less, but that's fair. I wasn't earning what Theodore was paying me. An idea formed. How would you feel about coming back? Not as management, as a regular maintenance worker. Same pay as the hospital, same benefits as everyone else on the floor. Walter's eyes widened. You'd hire me back? If you can follow safety protocols and treat everyone with respect. Yeah, we need good maintenance people. Derek leaned forward. But Walter, if you're anything like your brother, if you think you're entitled to special treatment, don't waste our time. I'm nothing like Theodore, Walter said firmly. I just want to do good work and earn an honest living. Derek extended his hand. Then welcome back. Report to the new facilities manager Monday morning. After they left, Grace looked at Derek with a mixture of surprise and approval. You're going soft. Maybe, Derek admitted. Or maybe I'm learning the difference between justice and vengeance. That evening, Derek picked up Katie from her art class, a new activity he'd enrolled her in at one of Millbrook's better schools. She'd thrived in the past few months, more confident and happy without the weight of the Randolph family's expectations. Dad, can we drive by Grandpa's house? She asked as they headed home. Derek glanced at her. Why, Bug? I want to see if the lights are on. to know if they're okay. His daughter's capacity for forgiveness humbled him. Sure. They drove through Millbrook Heights, past the estate. Lights were on in the kitchen. Through the window, Derek could see Theodore and Marion at their table, smaller than it used to be, dining alone instead of surrounded by family. They looked sad, Katie observed. They made choices that led to sadness, Derek said gently. That's on them. But they're still my grandparents. They are. Katie was quiet for a moment. Do you think they'll ever say there? Victoria appeared in his doorway, beautiful and confident in a way she'd never been under her family's shadow. She'd been promoted to operations manager, a position she'd earned through skill and dedication. Your mother just called me, Derek said. I know. I told her to. Victoria came in and sat on his desk. You okay with it? If Grace thinks she's qualified and she can treat people with respect, I'm willing to try. For Katie's sake. Victoria leaned down and kissed him. Have I told you lately that I'm proud of you? Once or twice. Well, here's once more. You took something ugly and turned it into something good. Not just the company, us, our family, our life. Derek pulled her into his lap. We did that. Together. Through his office window, he could see the production floor, workers who were treated fairly, paid well, and given opportunities to grow. A company built on respect and merit instead of family connections and false superiority. The Randolph family had thought they owned everything worth having. They'd been wrong. Derek McKenzie had been a broke handyman in their eyes, a charity case, a weight around Victoria's neck. They'd mocked him, belittled him, and tried to separate him from his daughter. But he'd been patient. He'd been smart. And when the time came, he'd shown them exactly who he was, and exactly what they'd lost. The termination letters had been just the beginning. The real revenge was building something better without them, proving that kindness and competence mattered more than arrogance and legacy. Some of them had learned that lesson. Most hadn't. But Derek McKenzie had won either way. He'd protected his daughter, strengthened his marriage, and built an empire on his own terms. And every day, he went to work in a company that bore his real name, surrounded by people who respected him for what he'd earned, not what he'd inherited. It had taken 14 years of patience, months of planning, and the willingness to burn everything down when they threatened what mattered most. But in the end, the broke handyman had shown them all exactly who the real loser was. And it wasn't him. Sorry, I don't know, sweetheart. Some people can't admit when they're wrong. That's sad too. Derek pulled away from the estate, heading toward their modest home. Modest no more, since he'd started renovating it, adding Katie's dream bedroom and a workshop for himself. Victoria was there, cooking dinner. They were building a real life together, one without lies or pretense. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Your mother-in-law called. Wants to have lunch. Just us. Should I go? Derek considered, then replied. Your call. But if she's cruel to you, walk away. Life's too short for people who can't show basic kindness. 3 dots appeared, then, when did you get so wise? When I stopped pretending to be someone I wasn't. Katie chatted about her art project as they drove, and Derek listened with half his attention while the other half contemplated the past months. He'd burned down his in-laws' world, exposed years of incompetence and cruelty, and emerged as exactly what they'd always mocked him for not being: successful, powerful, in control. The revenge had been sweet. The termination letters, the corporate revelations, the financial restructuring, all of it had been meticulously planned and perfectly executed. But the real victory wasn't in their destruction. It was in Katie's laughter, in Victoria's trust, in the life they were building without the weight of the Randolph family's judgment. Derek McKenzie had spent 14 years being called a loser, a charity case, a broke handyman who didn't deserve his wife and daughter. He'd endured it with patience and planning. And in the end, he'd proven that the only thing that really mattered was who you were when no one was watching, and who stood beside you when everything fell apart. He pulled into his driveway, helped Katie out of the truck, and walked into a house filled with warmth and love and the smell of his wife's cooking. The Randolph family had lost everything they valued: money, status, power, superiority. Derek had gained everything that actually mattered. And that, he thought as Katie ran to hug her mother, was the best revenge of all. Epilogue. 2 years later, Derek stood in the Millbrook manufacturing plant. He'd renamed it, removing the Randolph name entirely, watching the production floor hum with efficiency. The company had doubled in size, expanded into 3 new product lines, and was being featured in industry magazines as a model for employee-centered manufacturing. Grace approached with a folder. The quarterly reports are in. We're up another 22%. Employee satisfaction? 92%. Highest in the industry. Derek smiled. Good. Make sure the profit sharing reflects that. His office phone rang. He answered to hear Marion's voice, still stiff, but less hostile than it had been. Derek, Victoria mentioned you might be hiring for an administrative position. He leaned back in his chair. We are. I'd like to apply. Derek was quiet for a moment. Marion Randolph, former Human Resources Director, asking to apply for an entry-level administrative job. The humiliation must have cost her dearly. Have you talked to your daughter about this? He asked. She suggested it. Said you might be willing to give me a chance. Marion's voice wavered slightly. I know I don't deserve it. I know what I did. What we all did. But I'm asking anyway. Why should I hire you? Because I'm good at my job when I'm not being blinded by arrogance. Because I've learned that treating people with respect matters more than family legacy. And because, she paused. Because I want to know my granddaughter. And the only way that's going to happen is if I prove I've changed. Derek thought of Katie, now 12 and thriving. She'd asked about her grandmother recently, wondering if they could try again. Victoria had been cautiously open to the idea. Send me your resume, Derek said. You'll interview with Grace, not me. If she thinks you're qualified and can work well with others, we'll consider it. But Marion, you come in as entry level. No special treatment, no family privileges. You earn everything. I understand. And if you're disrespectful to anyone at all, you're done. We have a zero-tolerance policy for the kind of behavior you showed me. I understand that too. Marion's voice was steady. Thank you for considering it. After she hung up, Derek sat quietly for a moment. Forgiveness hadn't been part of his revenge plan. Justice had been the goal. Make them understand what they'd lost, who they'd been mocking, what their arrogance had cost them. But maybe, he thought, there was room for something beyond justice. Not for all of them. Theodore had died 6 months ago, bitter and unrepentant to the end. Rex was somewhere in Florida, still blaming Derek for his failures. Marshall had tried to sue for wrongful termination and lost badly. But Marion was at least trying. Walter had become one of the plant's most reliable workers, mentoring younger employees and leading safety training. Change was possible, even if it was rare. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.